guess about 3 or 4
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Press Pass Live, your weekly podcast show for the OMFL, and we are coming to you live. That's right, we're coming to you live on a Thursday afternoon, and I am so happy to have my good old buddy doing another throwback, just me and him. D-Wayne, how you doing today, bud?
I'm pretty good. I'm still recovering from that butt whooping you gave me the other day, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Hardly what I would testify as a butt whooping, but I'm glad that you're over it because I love you and I want you to love me. So that's what we do here in Grown Folks. We have a little man love fest, and it's all good. So our other buddies couldn't join us. Maniac had some stuff come up, and then Dawson, we're doing it too early for him. He's still stuck at work, but I worked from home. Don't tell anybody because I'm leaving for Chicago tomorrow for 6 straight days, and so I worked from home and squeezing in one of these podcasts because I'm going to be gone for a while, and we won't be able to do one until next, Thursday or Friday whenever I get back, but we may even wait till the weekend. That way we can make sure we have all 3 of us back and doing this podcast for you. So let's just jump straight into it. So much has happened since our last podcast, which got really great reviews. I hope that everybody went back and watched that. You can always go back, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and watch all of the podcasts that we spit out here, whether it's for Madden, whether it's for golf, whether it's for the GFW, the wrestling league that we have. There's just tons of great stuff that's out there. But let's jump into it and talk about weeks 8 or 9. As you talk, I'm just going to kind of scroll through the scores, but I want you to pick one game from those 2 weeks that you felt like stuck out to you and that you'd like to talk about.
Well, this week 8 had a couple. Stop. We had a couple games that stuck out to me. If I'm not mistaken, I have one picked out, but there was another one that the Texans and Titans was a close call. I think that was going to be a real great game, especially interdivision game. Those two kind of been rivals for a while now. But it was hard for me to not choose the Chargers and Raiders game. You're talking about 2 teams who, like I said, they don't have a lot of banner back and forth rivalry, but in game they're a rival. They've been fighting for that division, this whole Madden so far. And this game came down the wire. I watched quite a bit of it. I actually think the Chargers were up like 30 to maybe 30 to 8, 30 to 7 going into the fourth quarter, and the Raiders had a huge comeback. And I watched it all unfold. Raiders came back. The Chargers kind of got a little conservative towards the end of the game, pretty much. And Dawson knows he'd be the first one to tell you he was playing not to lose and instead of playing to win, and it almost bit him. Raiders had a chance there at the end to win the game, and like I said, just came up a little bit short. But just looking at a few stats, you're talking about the Chargers. You're talking about 301 yards passing, 85 yards rushing, and on the retrospect, the Raiders had almost 200 yards passing, 110 yards rushing. Neither, 100% on red zones for both sides. The telling thing with both these teams are, especially in a 30-22 game, is neither team was very good on third down in this game. You talking about the Raiders? Yeah. I mean, the Chargers were 29%, the Raiders were 27%,
which is really low for our league.
Which is really low, and especially both these teams usually are pretty well efficient run teams. But it was just a tale of pretty much 3/4 to 1. The Chargers dominated from 3 quarters on, and the Raiders made a push at the end and really just came up a little bit too short, which is crazy. The Chargers have, I don't know if you've known, they've been playing without their starting quarterback for most of the season. I think over half the season, and they got the infamous Chad Kelly playing for them.
Yeah.
He didn't play a perfect game. 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, but 301
yards is impressive.
It is. On 16 to 21 passing. These aren't dink and dunk passes. He's throwing the ball down the field. He's getting into hands of some playmakers. On the other side, Derek Carr had a good game. 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 200 yards. And just knowing the Raiders, that's actually a little bit lower than he usually does. He usually does like to air the ball out. But as you can see, Cooper on the Raiders side, 11 catches, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was unguardable in the second quarter.
He's the guy that I wanted to talk about for a second. Like, out of, all of the Madden players that are just in the game whenever you take over a team, like Cooper is one of those like golden pieces that makes people want to be a part of the Raiders, and yet we really don't hear a lot from him. Like, this is one of the handful of games that I can ever remember him having for a team that airs the ball out. Why do you think Cooper doesn't dominate like a Forbes or a Keasley or one of these other guys? Did I lose you? Oh, I lost you.
You there, Nate?
Yeah, now we got you.
Okay, I don't think in his system he a lot of his thing he really doesn't send the ball down the field near as much. I mean, this season he's actually having his best season in this Madden. I think he's got 814 yards through 8 games. He's on pace just to dominate, but he is more of a possession receiver, at least in his offense he is. And I think that he's really tried to lean towards the Russian attack, trying to become more of a Russian team, because as we know in the past, he's just a pass-heavy team. I think he's tried to lean more in the Russian, but in the fourth quarter, like I said, as I watched him, you look, 11 catches, 148. His long was 22 yards, and that says a lot to me. And I watched, and he wasn't throwing drag routes. This guy was just running real efficient medium routes. I mean, they weren't much run after the catch, but he was just making plays and making catches, and he kept the Raiders in the game pretty much. He made some catches in the game that were just ridiculous, and I think Dawson did a good job for the most part containing him. But you look on the retrospect, you got Mike Williams for the Chargers, who is having an outstanding season. Another one is he's on pace for a 1,400 yards, 1,500 yard season this year, and that's kind of unheard of in Dawson's offense, just because he doesn't air the ball out. And we'll talk more about the Chargers later in this broadcast. But overall, this game, I mean, you really can't ask for much more in a rivalry the way they have it going. I mean, it was a pretty well-played game all around. It wasn't a sloppy. It wasn't a 14-10 game with 7 turnovers. This was a good, hard-fought AFC West matchup. And I don't know if you can find many better games in Week 8 than this one.
No, it's a really good game. I want to look at week number 9. I want to talk about the Saints and the Falcons. No, I'm just totally just joking with you. I could keep it going and talking about our buddy Dawson, right? He had another classic game, 38-35 against the Broncos, who just can't get off the schneid this year. I don't know what's up with J-Bone. Like, I don't know if school has just kind of overtaken his life. Of course, he's never super chatty in the chat room, but he always gets his games in, and he's usually a much better team than this. But I do want to take a minute to talk about the Panthers and the Vikings, and this is probably going to be my game of the week right after this show is over. Carolina falls to the Minnesota Vikings 26-21. What would become their first of 2 straight losses, as they did fall to my Saints last night in another instant classic nail-biter that was won in just the final seconds of the game. But you can see in this game, right, Luck has been outstanding for his team since going over to Carolina. But that Vikings defense is legit. They only allowed 84 rushing yards and 260 passing yards. And it sounds like a lot of passing yards, but to hold Andrew Luck under 300 the way he's playing this season is pretty good.
Right.
And of course, that rushing game for Colin is always really, really great. The Panthers, though, are just an amazing defense. I gave up, I think, 11 sacks the first time I played him. I only gave up 3 last night, but this guy gets after the quarterback. He only allowed 37 rushing yards. He has to have a top 5 rushing defense, 246 passing yards, 75% red zone percentage. That ended up being the difference maker for the Panthers. But look at the third down percentage, only 17% third down percentage. That means there were some big plays there. But, man, the Panthers were just turning the ball over way too much. 4 turnovers to only 1 takeaway, and that's going to make you lose a game just about each and every time. Andrew Luck is as spectacular as he's played this year. 22 of 33, 260, not too bad, but the 4 big interceptions. The rookie Hoffman played really well for the Vikings, 13 of 20, not super efficient, but 254, 2 touchdowns, only 1 interception. Nobody really shined in the rushing game. McCaffrey's having a down season this year, 15 for 59. He did have 2 touchdowns, though, and that's pretty good. Diggs seems to have gone quiet for a little bit, but, man, he showed up in this game. 5 receptions, 128 yards, a touchdown with a long of 56. And Dez Bryant is still getting it done for the Carolina Panthers. It's amazing. I say amazing, but when you play him, it's super frustrating to see what Des Bryant can still do to
It is.
defenses today, even with his age and his lack of speed. And then you look at all these turnovers. Smith had an interception. Rhodes had an interception. Gaylor had an interception. And Culver had an interception. So not a lot of linebacker interceptions in there. That just means that uh, uh, what's his name? Luck was just having a bad day throwing the ball. He just did not. He was not efficient and he was not accurate, and he just struggled throughout the day. So let's look at some games in week 8 and 9, and we are here, right? We're here at the halfway point of the season. By the time I get back from Chicago, man, we're going to have a really good focus on who's starting to make a name for themselves and who's starting to fall off in the pack. But always in the middle of the year, I like to take a look because you can find some teams that may pick in like the top 12, the top 15, maybe even the top 10 of the draft, that if you looked halfway through the season, they actually were pushing for a wild card or they were pushing for a division. And this is usually the time where we see the cream rise to the top and the pretenders begin to fall off. So let's play a little game of buy or sell. So we're going to name some teams here, and I want you to tell me if you're buying or selling them as a playoff team for season 77. So you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Let's just jump right into it. Let's go with the Buffalo Bills. They are currently ranked 11th on the power rankings. They're 5-3. Are you buying or selling the Buffalo Bills?
This was probably one of the tougher choices that of the list we got today. Because it's a team that I guess I haven't watched a lot of. I haven't had my eye on them. But if you start looking at some statistics on those, there's some really good things to look at. You look at his defense. I mean, it's crazy. His passing defense is first in the league. He gives up 164 yards a game passing. That's ridiculous. I mean, literally. In the past happy league we got, we got some guys that really like to chunk the ball and to hold people to 164 yards says a lot. And I do like that he's took care of business in the division. He's beat the Dolphins this year. He's beat the Patriots so far this year. I mean, he's still got 4 games left. He's still got to play the Jets twice, who are the number 1 team in that division. But I do like what I see. He lost to the Chargers by a touchdown. He lost to a Raiders team that just scores a little deceptive, 51-38. It was a little bit closer than that. He lost to the Seahawks in a 20-point game, and if you guys know Mo, playing Mo within 20 points sometimes is a moral victory.
That is a victory.
But I'm gonna buy him. I think I like what I see so far. He's 5-3 with he doesn't have overpowering offense yet. I still think he's trying to figure out some things over there. But his defense, I think defense goes a long way, and I think that's going to be a reoccurring theme as we go through this list. I'm a big believer if your defense can stop the other team and frustrate another team, the offense will come. The offense will come if your defense can knock the other team off their rails per se and get them off track. I'm gonna have to buy the Bills right now.
Yeah, now you can't buy everybody. Somebody on this list you have to sell, but I'm going to sell the Buffalo Bills. Just because the few games I've watched them, they tend to turn the ball over a lot. Now, I'll say this. They do play pretty decent defense at times, and they can actually get you to turn the ball over right away back to them. But I think that there's still some things that they have to figure out on offense. And I think the Jets are the powerhouse of that division, and that's going to be really hard to bounce back. Look for them to kind of go 500 the rest of the way. I expect his team to finish, 9 wins, 10 wins. Be in a push for a wild card, but I think he's just barely going to miss out. Let's talk about the Oakland Raiders. They're ranked 10th in our power rankings. They're sitting at 5-3 also. Are you buying or selling the Oakland Raiders as a playoff team?
Well, this is another team where I honestly, and I know we're going to cover another team in their division down here pretty quick, I don't think that they win this division, but I think they're a playoff team, and this is why the only team I have in my whole selection, I do have some sales, by the way, Nate, that I kind of have I'm really on the line. I mean, I know you got to make a choice, and I'm going to buy them as a playoff team. I'm going to sell them as a division champion in that one. I think it's the Chargers' year in that division.
Yeah.
But I do like a lot of what the Raiders do, and in that division, it's them too and everybody else in that division, and I do think the Raiders will get a playoff spot. But I like what his defense does all around. He's pretty much top 10 in every defensive category. He's 11 in passing, but everything else is top 10. but he's solid. He's fifth in rushing. You're talking about a team, and I said it earlier, he's really trying to make a conceited effort to run the ball.
Yeah.
And his top two running backs are all averaging over almost 6 yards a carry. One's got 9 touchdowns, one's got 6. You got 1,000 yards in between them through 8 games. That's pretty solid. You can't ask for much more than that. He's got Derek Carr there. Honestly, I figured he would get his passing game on track. He is 27th in passing. I think he gets his passing game back on track, and I think he becomes even more deadly. The only thing that hurts me about him is I do think he plays to his competition a lot of times. If you look at his games, he has a few games that are more than a touchdown, but most of his games are real close, no matter who he plays. I mean, I know that the Broncos are always the tough game, but this year the Broncos have and no offense to Glaze, but they've been a doormat this year.
Yeah.
I just like to say he might be busy with life, but that's just saying that they've been a doormat, especially in that division this year. And even with the Chiefs, who are 1-8, and like I said, I know guys are trying to shape their teams up, but you 16-10, 35-27, and I know a win's a win, but you want to see him separate himself in those games and to show that he is the more dominant team. And I know that says a lot. Some people are just happy with wins, but you do need to separate. You don't need to play down to your competition. You just need to play you. And I will say, like I said, I buy him for a playoff spot. I sell him as the division champ in that division. He's got a real good team, and if he can get Derek Carr on track, and like I said, if he can keep getting Amari Cooper involved, he can win a lot of games.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I am going to sell the Oakland Raiders, though. I think that they do have that two-headed monster, a true two-headed monster in that backfield. I think that they're still figuring out some things on defense, and for whatever reason, they can't get that passing game rolling the way that you would think they could with Derek Carr and Amari Cooper. And I think you hit the nail on the head. He just plays down to his competition too many times, and that's going to hurt you as this season progresses and that schedule tends to get harder and harder. I'm selling the Oakland Raiders as a playoff team. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. They're ranked 15th in our power rankings. They're sitting at 5-4. Buying or selling the Cleveland Browns as a playoff team?
Okay, don't beat me up. I'm gonna have to. I like the Browns. I like what he's got building there. The only reason I'm gonna have to sell the Browns is offensively. I just don't know if he can match up with some teams in the AFC.
Yeah.
I think defensively that he can lock down the team. I think he can hold the team to 14 points, but he's got to be able to score 14 points. And I know he's 28th in scoring, 27th in yards a game, 21st in passing, 27th in rushing. A lot of teams, a lot of successful teams, and I'm one for myself. It doesn't bother me to be 25th in passing if I can be a top rushing team. You got to have something to go to.
Yeah.
And like I think we talked about it last podcast, he's got Crowell and Johnson in the running backfield, and neither one of those scares anybody.
No.
And so these guys are sitting there making Matt Ryan, who, like I said, Matt Ryan is a little past, a little over the hill. He can still do the job, but he has to have some help. And K just don't have the help on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, he's a juggernaut. He has one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
On paper, off paper, in game, and you can always count. You're not going to go in there and just put up some gaudy stats on the Browns. But like I said, the only thing that stops me from, buying the Browns is, for one, he's in Cincinnati's division. He's not going to win that division. I just don't think, even on Cincinnati's bad day, I don't think they score less than 21 points. I think he does that in his sleep. And I just don't know if he can match up firepower-wise with the Bengals. And I just think his defense can only, I'm a firm believer in defense, but your defense can only go so far. Your offense has to pick up a little bit of slack. And until, Chaos can prove me wrong with the offense and put some guys in place that can, that can generate something, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to sell the Browns.
Yeah, I'm going to buy them just because I really do hope he makes the playoffs and he's able to make a run. I think this defense is legit. Now, he's dropped a couple of games here, though, lately that you didn't expect him to drop. Like, there's some of these, again, like you said with the Oakland Raiders, there's some of these games you have to begin to separate yourself. Like, you're going to have to make a statement with some of these games. And then you look at some of these stats, right? Duke Johnson is averaging 4.1 yards a carry. He's 5 yards behind your leading rusher in yards with, 23 less carries, right? He's averaging a whole yard, 0.1 more. Why is Duke Johnson not your starter, right? Why is Alan McCutcheon not getting the backup carries there? I know he's only averaging 2.8, but he's a rookie. He brings some speed. Duke needs to be the starter. But I do like this defense. I think they're legit. I think that they're really, really playing well. as long as he doesn't continue to drop those games that he shouldn't drop, right? As long as he can win those, I'm going to buy them as a playoff team. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. They are ranked 7th in our power rankings. They're sitting at 6-2. Pretty good record for them. Are you buying or selling the Indianapolis Colts as a playoff team for season 77?
And this is a team right here to, if you just look at a team, it's a surprise this year. If you know who the coach of the team is, it's not a surprise. This is exactly what I would like to see Chaotix get to. And I say that with all due respect to both of them. Defensively, Big Hurt has the juggernaut. I mean, he's third points, first in yards, second passing, eighth in rushing. That's a winning formula. But on offense is where Big Hurt has always been able to beat you at too. I mean, you're talking about a team that can shut you down and then score 30 points on you. That shows why he's 6-2. He can run the ball. He's got Carson Wentz at quarterback. He's got a beast of running back in Gurley. And he spreads the ball out. He's got, if I'm not mistaken, 3 guys with 22 to 26 catches. It's just hard to single in on who he's going with. I mean, there's no easy recipe to beat the Colts. And he's in a division where that division always just beats up on each other. And, a 7, 8, 9 game winner goes to the playoffs. And he's not going to let that happen this year. I think he's separated himself. And I think that's a really solid division, but he's getting a gap between him that these guys, if you let him get a few more games, that's his division hands down. But like I said, this is what I would like to see the Browns at, a team that can shut people down. And his offensive stats for the Colts aren't just gaudy. They're just really solid. And if you watch him play, you know that he can score some points. And if you just look at his game this year, once again, he's dropped some games, in my opinion, that he probably shouldn't have dropped. And one was to DBL on the lines. And double zero is always a solid opponent, but that's just one of them games where, the line's at 2-6, you got to be able to win that game. And another one that I honestly thought it was a really good game. It could have been a game of the week, and it might have been in week 7. I can't remember. Was the Bears when he played the Bears at 34-31, he lost. And those are just, those are tough games. You're talking about 6 points and you're 8-0. I'm going to buy him. I buy him, and he's going to win that division. He's probably going to be a top 2 seed over there. And he's just a team that you can't overlook because he can, just like I said, he can knock you off your rails, take you off your game plan, but he can also drop 35 points on you. I'm going to buy the Colts, and I hope the AFC is looking at the Colts.
Yeah, you and I are going to agree on this one. I'm buying the Colts too, and I think that going back to something you said earlier about the Browns or other teams, he is 29th in passing yards, 20th in total yards, but 10th in scoring and 7th in rushing, right? He has that rushing game to lean on, and then he has a top 5 defense in the league. So he has really put together an impressive roster here. Gurley's averaging 5.3 yards a carry, 7 touchdowns. He's got the entire old Saints wide receiver corp over there, Willie Snead and Michael Thomas. When I seen what he was doing with Snead, I was like, really? Like, how's he able to do that? Like, very, very impressive what Big Hurt is doing with the Indianapolis Colts. And you got to give it to him, man. He has turned this team around and made them a real winner. Let's talk about the Houston Texans. They sit at 14th in our power rankings. Same division. They're sitting at 5-4. They had a big win over Cleveland a couple of weeks ago. They got lucky, but a win is a win. There are no asterisks in our record books. So, buying, selling the Houston Texans as a playoff team.
As much as I really like the Texans, there's a lot of things to like. I'm gonna have to sell them in that division. I think they might have dug themselves a little bit too hole. I know they're 5-4. They've won 5 out of their last 6 games. And they've won 4 in a row. The only thing that worries me is their defense is literally a bend but don't break defense. They're pretty much ranked in the bottom third.
Yeah.
In all yards statistically, they're ranked 9th in points, and what that tells me is they're creating turnovers. They're letting guys get close and settle for field goals. But eventually, your defense just needs to make stops in general. I know you can't be picky, but you can only bank on getting turnovers and field goals for so long that because against teams, you're against these juggernaut offense teams, the Seahawks and Bengals and, your Saints right now are out of this world offensively. You can't bank on making them guys turn the ball over, settle for field goals because they drop 35 points on you. And I don't think his quarterback play worries me. And I say that because he does have one of the best quarterbacks in the league and trainer. But you're talking about a quarterback who has has an 83 QB rating with
Yeah.
6 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and I just expect a lot more out of that quarterback. If he had a little bit better quarterback play, I wouldn't have a problem buying him at least for a playoff spot. But until he get that quarterback play under control, his rushing game is not bad. I mean, he's 18th in the league. He's middle of the road. He's got 2 running backs, one averaging 4 yards a carry, McCoy averaging 5 yards a carry. He does have a dominant receiver in Hopkins, and one of my favorites, Braxton Miller, is having a real good season. But until Trainer gets better and until his defense can start making some stops without relying on turnovers and making people set field goals, I just can't buy him. Not with the Colts in that division, and not with there's already 2 or 3 other teams that are 5-6 win teams that are going to be fighting for that wild card spot.
It's hard to argue with anything you just said, but I'm going to still buy the Houston Texans as a playoff team. I think that big win over the Browns is going to help give them the edge. It's going to come down to the last 2 weeks, and I think he's barely just going to squeeze in there. I do agree. He's got to get the quarterback issue figured out. He clearly has a good running game with the rookie Melton, who's got 518 yards on 131 carries, 8 touchdowns for the rookie. He's playing really, really well. And then Hopkins and Miller are having really successful seasons. Hopkins is averaging 19.8 yards per catch with 5 touchdowns. And I think on defense, this is a telling stat. So his top 5 guys, 3 of them has 7 forced fumbles. And that's a pretty high amount of fumbles. And then you look and see what he's doing with Barry Williamson. 31 tackles, 1 sack, 3 forced fumbles, 5 interceptions. That guy's going to be up there for Defensive Player of the Year. And that's why I'm going to buy the Houston Texans. I think if you can play a really solid middle linebacker and force teams into some bad throws, you can get away with not having a super efficient offense. Let's move to our buddy that we've talked about a couple of different times, our last AFC team here. Buying or selling the Los Angeles Chargers. They're ranked 9th in our power rankings. We're sitting at 6-3. What are you doing? Buying or selling your buddy?
Well, in that division, like I said earlier, when I sold on the Raiders win that division was because I think the Chargers will win that division. I think just offensively with the obstacles he's had to go over this year, quarterback wise, and we were just talking about the quarterback position for the Texans. You're talking about a guy who between 2 quarterbacks who, neither one of them are great quarterbacks, and then Chad Kelly really is a subpar quarterback.
Yeah.
At least statistically, you're talking about 21 touchdowns and 16 interceptions, which isn't a great thing, but 2,400 yards, you give or take a little bit, about 95 QB rating. That's pretty good for what he's had. What really gets me is that he's put up points this year, and that's what Dawson's always big thing was. I think he's kind of unleashed it and played a little more wild, and I think it's paid off for him so far. And he's found a way to win some of these games they should win. Now, one thing that worries me, defensively, and if you're gonna win games, I've always said if you're a winning team and you're ahead for most of the game, like I was talking about with him playing the Raiders earlier, 4th quarter he got air raided against, he got picked apart. He's 32nd in pass defense. He's going to have to get better. I mean, I know that when you get ahead, people are going to start throwing that ball around, but like you just said, you got to make some guys pay for throws, especially in throwing situations. His defense has to get better, but I do think that with his quarterback back, I think he has a really good Sherrod Moon is a solid running back. He has 3 running backs who all 3 of them can touch the ball and take it and get solid yards. I think this is a team that some of these guys are going to have to watch out for. I think Dawson kind of flies on the radar because there's really, and it's hard to say there's nothing flashy about a team when they're the #1 offense in the OMFL right now. But he really is so not flashy while being flashy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
He just has a really good team. He's going to get his defense better. I do think he wins this division. I think he, like I said, it says a lot. And I always tell Dakota, I got lucky, and he always tells me that you need a little luck to win games. And that's true. And he's found a way to get lucky and win some of these games. And I just think this is his season to win this division. I'm going to have to buy the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm buying the Chargers as well. Of course, I used to face off with him twice a season when he was the LA Rams. And it was always a head scratcher of why he left that. But he took over an older roster and has completely rebuilt them. I mean, he is winning 6-3 with an 88 overall team, with $24 million sitting over in the bank. So he's going to have some cash to spend this offseason. He's got the #1 passing offense, the #1 total yards offense, and he's doing all of that on Chad Kelly, right? And so that's impressive to be able to do. Like you said, he has some stud running backs. I mean, everybody who touches the ball is either averaging right over 4 yards a carry or right at 4 yards a carry. I mean, everybody that touches the ball seems to find huge holes. Mike Williams is having a really successful season with 759 yards on 37 catches, 7 touchdowns, a 20.5 average. And then that defense, man, his top 2 interception leaders have 8 interceptions combined for that team. And they're just playing really, really good football right now. And I like the LA Chargers to be a playoff team. I think they'll win that division, and it'll be interesting to see what can they actually do once they get there. Because if he continues to have injury problems, sooner or later you run out of bodies, right? And I don't know that you can win with Chad Kelly in the playoffs. He may get you there. Can he win you a game or two in the playoffs? I don't know. Doubtful. Can he win you an OMFL bowl game? And I seriously doubt that, even amongst the best of the best. And clearly Dawson is one of those guys. So we'll see, but I'm definitely buying the Chargers as well as you are. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. They're ranked 6th in our power rankings. They're 6-2, and you wonder, why is Nate buying or selling a 6-2 team? Well, that's because the Chicago Bears, for a while there, were our perennial losers. But, man, he has had solid draft after draft. He's rebuilt this roster, and with a little help from Lady Luck and a great running game, he has found himself in a great position. Are you buying or selling the Chicago Bears to be a playoff team in season 77?
No, this is this tough one. I'll announce my buy or sell at the very end. I have really enjoyed seeing Outlaw, and I think you can say the same thing. Really enjoyed seeing Outlaw turn it around. I think Trubinsky, we all gave him a hard time because he was real high on Trubinsky when the Bears picked him. And as the years have went, he's gotten better. Every year, his QB ratings got better. His interception numbers went down. His touchdown numbers went up. And I think that's a telltale with Outlaw. I think he finally realized that, he didn't have to play. He didn't have to. He even says he calls himself a gunslinger. Well, the 28th in passing offense doesn't really back your thing up there, Outlaw. But I understand you want a gunsling, but you just know that I think he's found a recipe. Running the ball, give it to Jordan Howard, give it to Hunt, give it to Cole.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna say Tariq. You got 3 running backs there who are all solid running backs, and honestly, you could afford to give them other running backs a few more touches. He's not breaking the 80-20 rule or anything like that, but it would be good. Get them other guys involved. Yeah, get them other guys involved and let them take some heat off Howard. You don't want to get Howard. If Howard gets hurt, Outlaw, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And giving him 15, 20 carries a game, back it off just a little bit. But and as a whole, I really like what Outlaw's got going on. The only thing that worries me about Outlaw is his division. I know he's ahead of everybody right now in his division. But you have Bill, you have Priest, just gunning down. I think both of them are not within a couple games, if I'm not mistaken. I know that he just beat the Packers pretty handily, beat them by 16 points. I know he's 1-1 with the Lions, which I think one of them was a sim loss, and that's just unfortunate. You hate seeing that, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. But he does have to play the Vikings 2 more times, and as much as I want to buy the Bears right now, you just got to prove me wrong, and don't prove me wrong this week because you play me this week, Outlaw. This is not the week to be proving stuff wrong. But I do think you have a great team. I think you're a season away from really just dominating that division unless the Vikings and Packers and Lions turn something around. I'm going to have to sell it. I still think this is the Vikings division to lose. I think the Vikings just have a better all-around team. But I do like what you got going on, Outlaw. I think you've turned it around, 360 degrees. I think you could be – I think you're right there on a playoff spot, but I just can't buy you right now as a playoff, contender.
I'm buying the Chicago Bears. I had some firsthand experience with him, and we had a rough game with some small issues, but I got to firsthand see that Jordan Howard is having an MVP season. This guy will be in the MVP running, 12 touchdowns, 723 yards, and 144 carries. He's averaging 5 yards a carries. Gale is playing really impressive for him. Gale's 47 receptions, 786 yards with 5 touchdowns. And his defense is really efficient as well. He's got a kid here, Brandon Leak, who's just playing outstanding. 2 forced fumbles, 7 interceptions in the season to go with 22 tackles. I'm buying the Chicago Bears. I like what they've done. It's good to see that he's rebuilt that team. You worry about some of these stats, right? He's 28th in passing. He's 22nd in yards, but he's third in points and he's ninth in rushing. So there are those stats that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that thing that he can lean on. Even on the defensive side of the ball, right? He's 22nd in passing yards. He's 20th in points, but 7th in total yards and 1st in rushing yards allowed. He's got that thing. So when a team has that thing on both sides of the ball that you can lean on, that usually means that you'll make the playoffs. I'm buying them as a playoff team. And this one's going to be a head-scratcher right here. Let's talk about the number one team in our power rankings, the San Francisco 49ers, 8-1. That sounds crazy, but again, another team that had to completely rebuild. I don't even know if he's been over 500 yet, but yet this year has completely exploded. He's found his quarterback. Buying or selling, the San Francisco 49ers is a playoff team in season 77.
Oh, this is as a playoff team that's making the playoffs. I think they're set in stone. In their own division, they're hanging on by a thread. I think their only loss they've had all year was to Mo and his Seahawks, and it wasn't a pretty game. I think Meathead would even tell you that game just fell out of hand real fast. But there's a lot of things I like. I do like that his offense is top 5 in every category, and I said that about Meathead, and I think even last Madden cycle we ran to Meathead he had like 2 or 3, maybe 4 seasons of like 4 or 5 wins, and then he went like on 2 seasons where he won like 12, 13 games.
Yep.
And when he gets hot, he gets hot.
Yeah,
and when he gets confidence behind him, he plays real well. And I think that with this new quarterback he has, I think who like I said, he just kind of reminds me there's nothing, just I hate to say nothing special, but just nothing. People like super high throwing power. They like, super high accuracy, or they want a real fast running back, quarterback. But this guy's nothing. He just plays. He just got that Shane Falco thing about him. He just plays. And I think that he's brought a lot of that feisty and toughness to the 49ers. And I think then you got to look at they got the quarterback, and you got 2 running backs who are almost 50-50 rushing-wise, and Carlos Hyde and Joe Williams at 79 carries, 67 carries, one averaging 6 yards a carry, the other averaging 5 yards a carry. And then it looks like, I'm trying to think who this guy is, this Daryl Todd. I don't know. I look at his stats, and nothing is just crazy about him either. But on his few touches he's had this season, he's averaging 17 yards a carry with 67 on 1 carry. He's just got a lot of things to like. He's got probably the most, I say underrated, but of all the superstar receivers, this guy probably slides under the radar more than the rest of them. And he's just a beast. He's been a beast since day one. I think he came to the league first week, had 250 yards receiving his first game. And then he's got Alshon Jeffrey. He's got a check down guy in Trent Taylor, who is a heck of a route runner. He's just got a solid defense all around, and a solid team all around. But we haven't got the point yet that usually stands out with him is his defense and like I said earlier, the pass defense is deceptive. When you're winning games, people have to air it out.
Sure.
It's one of the things. But Meat has always been known as just a killer middle linebacker user. He really just shuts down the middle of the field. He doesn't roam, doesn't do a whole lot. There's nothing fancy to what he does with his defense. He just has a real solid defense, and that just shows right there. They're giving up 20 points a game, 7th in the OMFL. His passing defense and total yards doesn't look good, but he's 10th in rushing.
Yeah.
That just tells me that he does give up a lot of yards at the end of the game. He gives up a lot of, I ain't going to say trash yards, just yards when people, they have to air it out to conserve time at the end of the game. I think there's a lot to like about the 49ers. He has, if I'm not mistaken, 3 guys with 6 interceptions, 4 interceptions, 3 interceptions. Yeah. They're on his secondary. This is not even the middle linebacker he uses. I think Reuben Foster's who he uses, who has 2 interceptions, which is really low for him because it wasn't too long ago. He was, pushing 9, 10 interceptions with that middle linebacker. And it just looks like the rest of his defense is shaping around that middle linebacker, and just a lot to love about it. I will be intrigued to see this next time that him and Mo play, which I think might be week 15 they play. That will be, hands down game of the week. You're talking about 2 completely different guys. You're talking about a defensive juggernaut, offensive juggernaut going at it. And, I can't remember a kind of a hype rivalry built up since the days of Cincy and Ducks being in the same division.
Yeah.
When you had a 15-game winner and a 14-game winner in the same division. I'm going to buy the 49ers. I think they're a great team. I think he's got the defense to win. And I just think he has the mojo on his side. I think there's a lot to love about it. And I'm going to buy the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I'm buying the 49ers. I mean, I think he's pretty much a shoe-in for the playoffs unless something just falls completely. You do worry about the Seahawks game, and is that a forward vision of what's going to happen in the playoffs, right? He is winning with a rookie quarterback. Retkosky does have Sir Wanga with him, right? And that will make any quarterback look really, really good. This is a top 3 receiver in our league, 46 receptions. 1,087 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's averaging 23.6 yards a carry. You look at his team on paper and you're like, why is Carlos Hyde and Joe Williams a running back? Well, he's just averaging 6 yards and 5.1 yards a carry with both of those guys. So he shares the carries between those two, even though Carlos Hyde, if he would have got, I don't know, a third more of those carries, man, this guy might be in the 700-800 yard range, right? Like, he is just having an outstanding season. Top 5 team on every stat in the offensive side of the ball, which is really, really impressive. But then you face the Seahawks, and they have a top 3 defense in this league. And so you're going to have to get some things figured out. I do believe what you're saying is in the defense, those numbers are skewed a little bit, but 31st does make you worry. He does have a guy who's playing exceptionally well with the interceptions. Von Bell, an old Saints guy. It makes me a little nauseous that I sent him over there, but I got a pretty good deal out of it, and it's kind of a win-win for both of us. You worry, though, I would want to see, even with him up and teams having to pass, I'd still want to see that team in the 18 to 22 range, right? Like, that would make me more comfortable about those skewed numbers. 31st is 31st. Skew them or not skew them, they're 31st. And he's 30th in total yards, right? You got to figure some of those things out. But he does have that thing, like you've been talking about, with the rushing yards 10th and the points and 7th, only 20 points per game. Those numbers are also skewed because you face the Seattle Seahawks twice a season. It's going to be real interesting. I'm going to have my eye on that Seattle Seahawks game that's going to happen a little later this season. It should be a barn burner, but I, too, am buying the San Francisco 49ers. Now I'm going to throw a little bit of a twist in here for you. I'm not actually going to pick a team. I'm going to pick a couple of teams. So let's talk about the NFC South, which I've gotten lucky lately and been able to make interesting, and you are not having your superstar season that you always have, but you got the Carolina Panthers at 6-3, the Atlanta Falcons at 6-3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quietly at 5-3, and then my Saints at 5-4. I will say this little caveat to that: I will miss the next 2 games most likely, unless that last game, the league will wait on me to get home on that Wednesday night, and that guy can play late on that Wednesday night, then I might be able to just miss 1 game. I think that's going to take my team out of the running. But are you buying or selling what team in the NFC South to make the playoffs?
Well, I think you said a lot right there. I think, I've always said a lot, speaking of my Falcons, I think, I've always said I got lucky in a few games, and sometimes breaks your way, sometimes you don't. My game this year, I've been manhandled, in my losses. I think you pretty much dominated from start to finish against me. Carolina dominated from start to finish against me. And Mo. The bad thing about my best loss per se was against Mo. I lost by less than a touchdown.
Yeah. But give yourself some credit. Big win this week against Dallas. So.
Well, Dallas was a big win. It was an ugly game on both sides. Neither offense clicked at all, and I was just lucky to come out of there with the win. Like I said, luck was on my side this week. I did get I just caught that break, and I got the W. The Panthers are solid. The Panthers, though, they've lost 2 in a row. That's what worries me. Colin really does ride that momentum factor. He's lost to you this week. I didn't get to watch the game. I know it was super late last night. I might let you break that down a little bit more when you start talking. But he lost the Vikings last week, which I've always said the Vikings are a solid team. Can't look past the Vikings. The Vikings are a real good team. It's hard to discount him, especially with Luck. He's got his old Colts matchup all back together. He could be a scary team. I mean, like I said, he could beat anybody any given day. He's got a well-beat team. The Buccaneers are a team that I've been telling people this whole time, don't sleep on him. He's got one of the best user linebackers that I've played against in a long time. All around, he's just a solid player. I think he let some slip away early in the season. Especially he lost to I was trying to see who he lost to earlier that kind of threw me for a loop. He lost a couple games just back to back. That worried me a little bit, but I honestly think that as long as he keeps it just plays within himself, that he'll keep himself in the race to where he, like I said, if he's a game or two away, he can be fighting for this division title or fighting for a wild card spot. And your Saints, Nate, like I said, you just have worst luck I've ever seen. You have 5-4. You come off 2 hard wins, and now you're going to leave for 3 weeks, or 3 in-game weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And like I said, it could be make or break. I just want everybody to know that we're going to turn the computer sliders up really high. So we're going to make sure y'all have a tough game. But no, I just think this division go anyway. I think it's hurting. My Falcons are 1-2 in the division. That's a big thing. Everybody's got 2 losses in the division so far. It's going to come down to it. This could remind you of, I think, maybe the first season this Madden.
Yep.
This could be another one of them. I think we're gonna have all 4 teams. Hyphen next to your Saints, since you're gonna be gone for 3 weeks, or at least gonna be 8-game winners, maybe 9-game winners. Yeah, I think it'll be a 10, at the most 11-game winner if we're lucky out of this division. I just think we're gonna beat each other up so much. But I don't think anybody should be excited, because I think all 4 of these teams can make a run in the playoffs and can surprise some people.
Yep, you're not going to buy or sell, but I'm going to buy and sell some teams here. I will say that my win last night, late last night for this week against the Carolina Panthers, sure in the hell made this division really, really interesting. I sent the Carolina Panthers a message after my lucky win against you saying you're welcome. I should send one to you and the Tampa Bay Bucks saying you're welcome, because I was able to tighten this thing up a little bit here and make this really interesting. But again, you missed 2, at least. I'm probably going to miss at least 2 advances. I'm hoping I can make it back. I'm back next Wednesday, and so if things work out and we stretch out the advances to where they go max days, then that Wednesday would fall on the very last day. So we'll just see if I miss 2, but I'm definitely going to miss 1, and it's going to, that 5-4 is one thing. 5-6 is a completely another, with just a handful of games. Still have to face you again. Still have to face Tampa Bay, I think twice, maybe once. I think just once. So those are going to be really, really tough games. I am buying the Carolina Panthers. I'm buying the Atlanta Falcons, and I 1,000% agree with you. I think that this is going to be like Season 1, where we could all possibly finish with a winning record. These missing games for me may take me out of that running, but I think you 3 are definitely going to finish with a winning record. It would not surprise me at all if the Tampa Bay Bucks get a last playoff spot with the last wild card. But I see the Atlanta Falcons making a late comeback here, beating the Carolina Panthers, winning this division. Carolina's going to get a playoff spot. I think Tampa Bay is just barely going to miss out, but would not surprise me at all. The reason I think they're going to miss out is because you got the Seattle Seahawks at 7-1 and the San Francisco 49ers at 7-1. Both those teams are probably going to make it, right? Unless both die and don't play anymore. Like, they're probably both going to make it, and that means a really good team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to miss out. Really and truly, if you want to get in this division, you better win the division, because that's the only way that you're a shoe-in. Anything outside of that is not going to be a shoe-in. So there's our buy and sell segment for this for season 77 for this week, and we're sitting in week. I think we're in week number 9, right, or 10. I don't know. We're something like that. We just advanced late last night, so my brain's a little foggy. But let's take we're in week number 10. Now I remember correctly. Last week was week number 9. I want to move the next segment down one, and we're actually going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers player. So let's get over to him really quick. He is a rookie quarterback that is playing exceptionally really good football. Mr. Russell Retkosky? I don't know. I always mess that up. I think guys make fun of me because I butcher names. But he was a number 1 draft pick for the San Francisco 49ers. He was picked 20th in that round. And, man, he has played superb football. He is sitting at 81 overall, 6'3", 232 pounds. Just an average Devo guy, but man, he's played well. He's got the 90 throwing power, the 85 sharp, the 83 medium, the 78 deep. Nothing that kind of blows you away. He's got a little bit of speed to kind of move around in the pocket a little bit and buy himself some extra time. But man, he has played good with 18 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions for a 114.7 quarterback rating. My question to you is, does this kid have what it takes to be an OMFL great, all-time great, and Hall of Famer?
Well, I think when you start talking about OMFL all-time great, Hall of Famer, I think you there's some big names up there. I
Yeah.
think that's a very big pedestal to put him on. I think he's had a great rookie season so far. I think especially he don't have some of the gaudy numbers that some of the quarterbacks do, but I think what he does extremely well. Honestly, if you take away his very first game of the year, his very first game, honestly, you couldn't start off any worse. 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 6 sacks. He didn't necessarily have the greatest debut as a 49er. But ever since then, really, he's only had 2 other bad games. Every other game is literally 120 QB rating and above. If you take away the one game against Seattle, and these are the games that make or break you as an all-time great here. Against Seattle, he was 5 for 23 for 130 yards and an interception. That's a 32 QB rating. You got to play better than that in big games. And you can't knock a guy for one bad game. But greats are made on big stages, and that's as big a stage as you can get in the regular season is playing your rival, 2 juggernaut teams. But I do think he has, and I said it earlier, and I don't want you to think that I think I found a new word, so I'm going to keep using it, but I think he has mojo.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has it in him. Like I said earlier, there's nothing just as extreme. He has, if you look at the Data Leagues page, it'll give you the red, the yellow, and the green.
Yeah.
Everything's green across the page. I think he has all good stats, but nothing is extremely great. Nothing just sticks out to you and says, well, this guy's a super hard thrower, so this guy's super accurate, this guy's a Michael Vick in the making. Nothing says that about him. But he just makes plays. I mean, he just knows how to play. He's got a great coach behind him, a great user that knows how to go to his strengths and to use it. And I think that this guy, like I said, he has turned around a team that was a 4-year loser, or this is our third. This will be the 4th season, correct?
Yeah.
That's Madden. You're talking about 3 straight years. They had won 4 or 5 games, and that was it. And I mean, you talking about he turned around a team. He's already turned around, doubled their wins 9 games into the season. And I know it's not just him. They got a great young core around him, but it all starts with that quarterback. And I think he has a shot to where if he can keep this up, and especially if he can be big in that next matchup against Seattle and just show that he can play on the big stage, I think he's got a really good shot at being an all-time great.
Yeah, Mr. Retkosky has been a really good rookie quarterback. But my worry and concern, the question was, does he have what it takes to be an all-time great here, a Hall of Famer? So if you guys are new here and don't know how this works, is after every Madden cycle, we find some Madden-generated players. Everybody's allowed one Madden-generated player that they drafted or that's on their team. So if the player has to be on your team, right? If that player's on your team, you get to pick one guy that we will recreate in Madden 19, and you will take with you. It kind of adds some flavor and some flair to our league, and it allows us to kind of build up some, players that are very unique to just the OMFL. For the players who do not get picked to go along with them, if those players are submitted by the owner, we then vote as a board, and they have to get 75% of the vote if that player should be elected to the OMFL Player Hall of Fame. Last year, we only had 3 players get elected into the Hall of Fame. And so, will this Russell Retkosky make it into the Hall of Fame? I don't think so. And here's why. Because quarterbacks usually hit that sophomore slump. Usually, for whatever reason, the rookie year they play exceptionally well, but that second year they struggle. And just meathead as a coach. We've seen these like ebbs and flows, the mojo, as you've called it, the momentum of winning and losing kind of hit meathead harder than almost anybody in this league. He's either going to be a 4 or 5 win team, or he's going to be a 13-14 game winning team. And so, though they are having a spectacular season this year, you're facing the Seahawks twice every single season, and that defense is really, really good. You expect the Rams to get things figured out. You expect the Cardinals to continue to take leaps forward. I just don't think he will be a winner. Meathead will win with him. He is clearly efficient enough to be a winning quarterback for Meathead, but I think that because none of these stats jump off of the page at you, and because Meathead's up and downness, I just don't think that he will be a Hall of Famer here in the OMFL. Which kind of brings me to my last point that we were supposed to talk about, but I'm going to throw a little wrench. I'm going to save my next point for the very last thing that we discuss, and we're going to run over and talk about the owner-submitted questions. Now, usually I find time to go through these questions and pick the ones that we want to use, but we didn't have that kind of time today, well, because most of these questions weren't in. A lot of these questions came in super late last night. So we're going to do a little rapid fire. We'll pick a couple of these to run through. I may skip some of them, especially since it's just me and you, but I'll tell the owner, I'll read the question, and let's just rapid fire them. Right back, left and right. We talked about this one a little bit. This one comes from Mo. He says, I would like to know or put the odds on the Bears winning at least one playoff game this season. What are the odds that the Bears win one playoff game this season?
Well, I said earlier that I didn't think he'd win the division. I think Vikings win it, but I do think he has a good shot at the wild card. And honestly, I think it just depends his matchup. If he meets somebody that plays a lot like his style, that plays a conservative running and makes him pass the ball and force him, I don't think he wins one. I think if he finds somebody who plays the exact opposite, and there's teams that do that, that play more of a gunslinger, throw it down the field and plays right into his hands. And since he won't be a division winner, he'll probably be a 4 or 5 seed. I'm going to give him a chance that if he's a 5 seed, he wins one. If he's a 6 seed, he doesn't win one. I think that's where it falls to me. I think as a 5 seed, he plays a 4 seed, and I think that he could get one of the division winners. I think he could beat that 4th spot. If he's a 6 seed, I don't see him beating a 3 seed. So I'm going to say 60% chance that he wins the first round playoff game,
wow.
And 40% chance that he doesn't.
Yeah, I'm going to go 45% chance that he wins his first game. I think that the Bears will make the playoffs. I was a buyer in them. I just think that some of these struggles are going to come back to get you as you get later in the season. And once you get into the playoffs, you're playing the creme de la creme. I expect him to have a wild card, and so he's going to play a pretty good team. Would not surprise me if he has to go and travel and face off against the Seattle Seahawks or San Francisco 49ers, whoever doesn't win that division, right? And that's going to be a really tough game to win. I'm going to give him 45% chance. This comes from our buddy and usually one of our co-hosts here. He says, I'll put an SFW spin on the question from the movie Step Brothers. Zero clue what he's talking about. I've never seen Step Brothers. I probably should go watch it.
Wow.
Currently, top 3 receivers. I've seen bits and pieces of it, just not start to finish. Current 3 top receivers this season are Will Kesey for the Seattle Seahawks, Rashawn Sawanga for the San Francisco 49ers, and then my tank forwards with the Saints. You got to keep one, cut one, trade one to your rival. Go.
Wow. I just got the whole Step Brothers thing now. You said keep one, trade one, and sell one.
Keep one, cut one, trade one to your rival.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep Forbes myself. He's a big body receiver. I seen firsthand how he could eat somebody apart last week. I'm going to sell Kesey. I want to get him out of the picture altogether. I don't want him anywhere. And I'll give Sawanga to my rival. I feel like I have the best chance of stopping him. Not that he's not a bad receiver, but I think I have the best chance out of them 3. He has the most weaknesses, in my opinion. And I just want Forbes on my team because he's 6'3". I think he's like 220 pounds. Yeah, pretty much. He's big, he's fast, and he can do anything Kesey can do. He's just bigger. So that's who I'm going to pick. I'm keeping Forbes. I'm cutting Kesey, and I'm getting Sawanga to my rival.
It's funny. That's exactly what I would do. Of course, Tank Forbes is my guy. He was my Madden import from last Madden. And the guy's got 70 run block. I mean, I am definitely keeping that dude. He's big. He's fast enough. He can make all the catches. He can block like better than most rookie offensive linemen. Tank Forbes is staying on the Saints, and I think he will be a Hall of Famer in this league. I am trading Sawanga to a division rival. Same thing that you said. I do worry about his height. I do worry about his speed. The guy is a burner. So I say that, now I'm talking myself out of this. Okay, I'm giving you Kesey because he's 5'9". So that's why I'm giving you Kesey, because even though he's putting up stupid stats, I think he's only putting up stupid stats because he's with Mo. I don't see him putting up stupid stats with everybody else. And then I'm cutting Sawanga because I just talked myself out of it. That dude is like 6'7", 97 speed. Like, he's just stupid fast. Get him out of here. Let him go play somewhere else. I'll give you guys Kesey. I can play with a 5'9" guy that probably isn't going to get behind my dudes with his 95 speed. And then, of course, Tank Forbes is staying with me. We appreciate all of these questions. Our buddy Dawson has another one. He says, we're now in the 4th season of this Madden cycle, and we have a few Madden-generated quarterbacks starting. Which one is the best so far? That's a pretty difficult question. Which quarterback would you take? This one's going to be tough to do off of the fly, but what starting Madden-generated quarterback would you take on your team?
Like I said, that is tough. I mean, honestly, we've talked about, in my opinion, one of the best ones earlier, Retkosky.
Yeah.
He's one of your best ones. I think you got, if you want to talk about your import, I mean, he's a credit. Arnaud for Cincinnati is a solid player. And even Ed's, even though for some reason he had way better stats towards the start of the season.
Yeah, he was playing
Detroit
outstanding.
Was a solid one. If I had to go on one, man, I ain't gonna lie to you. If I was Meathead, I would have an extravagant Shane Falco story for Retkosky.
Yeah.
I'm just a fan of him. He just brings that it factor. Like I said, you said earlier, he just kind of brings it, and he just knows how to win, and he just brings something to the table that some of these other guys, to me, in my opinion, don't have. He don't have none of the quote unquote physical attributes of Arnaud or somebody like that. But he just brings that it factor. Or you got Ray Sparks. I mean, you look at somebody like him, who's another dominant guy. Especially when Jennings was running that team, he was a record breaker in the making. But I'm gonna have to go with Retkosky. I think he's young. I think he brings that. Like I said, I know I keep quoting that because that's one of my favorite movies. It's Shane Falco. I just love Retkosky. I think if I had to pick a quarterback out of all of these, I'd want him being the face of my franchise.
Yep, it's hard to argue that. My initial knee-jerk reaction is Arnaud with Cincinnati. I mean, that dude has just been spectacular, but I got to go with my dude. Like, that's why I went out there and got him Sean Hamlin. I mean, look, this guy could do it all, right? He's got 93 throw-in power, 86 speed, 87 acceleration, 90 short, 90 medium, 75 deep. Put him in the hands of a Mo. Put him in the hands of a Dwayne. Put him in the hands of a Cincyberg, and it would be stupid the stats that you guys would put up with him. His biggest downfall, as efficient as he has played this season, has just been sacks. I had to start some backup offensive linemen due to injury or whatever. I mean, he's already been sacked 44 times this season. We're only halfway through. It's just stupid the amount of sacks that have been he's had to just kind of push his way through. But 67% completion percentage, almost 68, 2,600 yards after this last game, 15 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He's found a way to cut down on the interceptions. And I love the fact that he can scramble a little bit. He can get out of the way if he needs to. He brings in that run-pass option. And I love that about him. So he's my guy, of course. Let's go to Bill for the last question. Mo did have 2 other questions, but Mo, it's Dwayne. The questions were about Dwayne. I'm not asking Dwayne questions about himself.
It is, Mo.
We know how that goes. So he wanted to know about you making the playoffs or making the Super Bowl and winning the division, but we know what your answers are going to be. Let's go over to Bill for this last question. Behind a more balanced offense and surprisingly good defense, the Chicago Bears have jumped out to a 6-2 record and led the division by 2 games. Can Outlaw sustain this great play and capture his first NFC North division title this season? Thank you, Bill, for being very great in your writings and grammatically correct and all of these wonderful things. He even bolded some words and all that stuff. But I think we've talked about Outlaw a whole lot. What do you think? Can he win this division?
I've said it earlier, and I won't backtrack. I don't think he wins the division. I think Priest or Bill is going to jump up there. I just think they're especially Bill's experience in that position. I think Priest has been there before, and I just think Priest's playing style plays against what he needs to do, honestly, to win that division. I think the Vikings, that's their division. And as much as I would like to say that he's going to win it this year, I've already said I think he's a year away. I think he's putting himself in position. He's figuring out how to win the game, and now he's got to get the guys in place to sustain it. I don't think this is the year he wins it. I do think he continues success, and I think he makes the playoffs this year. But no, to answer, Bill, your question, I don't think he wins the division this year.
just hit me. I forgot to post that we were live, so I hope that people are watching and click my screen. I usually try to tweet that out and post it so everybody can tune in that's sitting around doing nothing. But don't worry, it's live. After YouTube processes it, it'll be out and you guys can watch. I'll stick with what I said. I think Outlaw is going to win this division. I am nervous. The fact that he's got to play Bill 2 more times. Those are going to be massive, massive games. But I do like what Outlaw's done. And when you have a 2-game division, you have the onus is going to be on Bill. I don't see Brees doing it. 00 is just, he's working like 512s and stuff. And like he just totally unplugged. And so I definitely don't see him doing it, even though he's got some really fun young talent there. I just don't see Priest being able to win the big game. And Bill has a hole to dig out of. He's 2 games behind. Yes, he'll make up those 2 games if he beats the Bears, but then the Bears still have to go out and do him a favor, right? They got to drop another game or so. So I do think the Chicago Bears are going to win this division, and kudos to them for sticking with their plan and making it happen. So now it takes us to our very last question, which is actually was going to be a segment of mine here, and I moved it around because it really is just a discussion question. Let me give you a little context. So this has been a conversation between Chaotix and I. Chaotix is our FPR guy here. It does just a magnificent job for us, and yeah, we're just super blessed to have him as part of our community. I know that he's got that big, deep voice and scares all of us, and I got to give him props, though. He's worked on his typing etiquette, and I think these last like 6 or 7 seasons, he's been really, really great, and he handles guys really, really great. He was a little rough around the edges when he first got here. Just an old Cajun boy, but he and I started this discussion around receivers, and Chaotic takes issue with having a number 1 receiver being really way out there when it comes to receptions, yards, and touchdowns, and big plays, and all those crazy stats. And this really does come from, the top 5 guys or so, really the top 3 who are just putting up some pretty crazy stats out there. So Will Keesley with Seattle, 49 receptions, 1,353 yards, 14 touchdowns already on the season for a guy that won Rookie of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year last year. Tank Forbes, he does have 1 more game than all these other guys, 72 receptions, 1,209 yards, a 16.8 average. That makes me feel really good. He's not, going deep ball all the time. Like he makes the tough catches. Only 4 touchdowns, and then Sir Wanga, 46 receptions, 1,087 yards, 23.6 average, 9 touchdowns on the year. And so you can see, especially with the Yak, Keesley is having such an outstanding season. So is Buckley, and so is Corey Davis. Like those 3 guys are having really outstanding seasons. Even if you went down a little further to Amari Cooper with that Yak, nobody's putting up the stats that Keesley is, though. That guy's just playing lights out 2 seasons in a row. So I've kind of taken you the very scenic route to get to my question because I wanted to give some context. He and I started a conversation around, do you have a problem with a number 1 receiver putting up these types of stats, and should we begin to ask guys or force guys with some kind of governing rules to look at other receivers? So that's my question that I'm presenting to you. Do you have a problem when a number 1 receiver on his team is the guy who gets most of the looks, most of the catches, most of the yards whenever they're playing?
Well, you said you had a conversation with Chaotix. I've had conversations with Chaotix about it, just on and off, nothing real serious. And my thing goes back to, it's not like the running backs per se, to where you want an 80-20, or in my opinion, I like a 60-40. But an 80-20, it's really hard just to find, you have your star receivers, and then you have your other guys trying to force passes to those guys to get them catches.
Can I pause
you
real quick? The only reason we don't do 60-40 is because guys can't do math. And I'm just trying to keep the math as simple as possible. So that's why we say 80-20, every 4 carries, give somebody else a carry, because math is not the prerequisite to be in a Madden league, so we try to keep it super simple. But you were making some great points. Go back to it.
Yeah, the 6-4 thing is my preference. I love the 2 running back system, yeah. But it's harder for me to tell a guy to make sure those guys get catches when Kesey's open every time.
Yeah,
and I understand if you look at Kesey's stats. I hope I'm saying his name right, Kesey. I mean, he's just across the board. Everything is, I hate to say, almost maxed out, but it really is. And as a guy who had 200 yards put up by him against me this year, there was nothing I could do. I had, which I didn't have my starter cornerback, but I had some good secondary guys, and he just picks you apart. And I know his yak. A lot of people look at yak and say, well, he's running drags or he's running slants and just taking them to the house. But he literally runs the whole route, the whole route ladder. There's not a route that he can't run and get open on, and I think that somebody like me, I don't have a problem. I do not have a superstar receiver, so it's a lot easier for me to throw to 2, 3, 4 different guys. I mean, I think I have 3 receivers with 20 to 26 catches, somewhere like that. But if I had somebody who was open every time, like Forbes, if I had Forbes on my team and if he could, I look at your guy, 1,200 yards receiving, 274 yard after catch. I've told you before, he just knows how to, he's not catching it, taking it to the house or anything like that. But that's not what you ask him. You're asking him to run his route and get open, and he does. And when you have somebody like him who gets open like that, are you going to tell me to throw to Forbes, who is open, or are you going to tell me to force the ball to Willie Snead, which I know is not a Saint right now, force Willie Snead, who's not open at all? I think it's really hard to tell guys to do that because it's not like running the ball. You can't just, I know some of these guys do it. I know some of these guys, they ride the 80-20 rule right on the money, and you'll see them. They'll put that back up in, and they'll get 1 yard, and he won't see the field for another 5 runs. It's hard to tell people to do that in the passing game because a bad pass or two going to a receiver who's not open, that game might be over.
Yeah.
You turn the ball over 2 or 3 times against somebody like you or a Mo or a Colin. You turn the ball over like that against some guys, you might not ever be back in the game. I think it's hard to govern for one. I think it's hard to police. I also think that you're asking guys to overthink it. Honestly, passing the ball because even in the real world, your star receivers get the majority of the looks.
Yep. Nope, I agree with you. Everything that you've said, I thought, like, you and I are on the exact same page, right? And I know Chaotic doesn't agree, and that's totally fine. Like, we don't all have to agree with everything. I don't want board members who only agree with me. Like, I want us to have deep discussions. That's what makes us a better league, and I wish he could be on with us so that we could have him actually talk about this. But everything you said, I totally agree with. I think that in the real life, a receiver rarely comes off the field, but in real life, a running back always comes off the field, right? They're always in and out of games. You don't see running backs getting that 30, 35 carries per game. That's why we have the 80-20 rules, because fatigue doesn't work well enough to actually make a backup running back get a carry. So we kind of have to force it because that's the reality of what happens in an NFL game. But a superstar receiver never comes off the field. They just don't. And if they're open, you throw it to them. And right, there's so many good things that you said that I 1,000% like. How would you police that? Right, you just made everybody's job harder. Again, I think there's a balance, a fine balance between rules and regulations and having to like overthink things. And like when guys told me that they used to have to print our rule book and lay it in front of them while they play, like I don't want that. I just don't. Like if we got to do that to actually run a league, then I'm out. Like I need to retire because that's not fun. This is not a job. This is supposed to be fun. It's also supposed to be fair. That's why we have rules. We have rules to keep things fair, but it's supposed to be fun. Guys shouldn't have to remember 75 rules. And then, like you said, what do you do? Like, every 5 catches, somebody else has to get a catch. Well, then if that guy's got 5 catches, then I don't need to guard him anymore. I'm just going to guard everybody else because he can't throw to him anymore. Like, it's just a slippery slope that I don't want to go down. I also personally believe, now in Keesley, it's a little bit different. He's putting up stupid stats on everybody, but I think it makes it easier to guard, right? It's like, I know the ball's going to him. I'm going to double him. I'm going to use her in his area. I'm going to do whatever I can to stop him and force that guy to go somewhere else. Colin did that to me last night with Forbes. I mean, he was covering Forbes like white on rice and was forcing me to go other places. And here's the other context of that conversation. Here's where I would have a problem with it. If Kesey was a slot receiver, I got a problem with it. If Kesey is a number 2 receiver, it's a little gray area where we got to have a conversation. I mean, your 1 and 2 guys are usually always on the field, but if you're purposely only looking for your number 2 guy because you have that other matchup, but again, in this Madden, like, you can change that. All you got to do is go to your coach settings. You can do it by speed, by depth chart, by route running, by height. There's like a zillion ways that you could do it. to match up cornerback and receiver. So I don't. It's a gray area that I don't really have a ton of problem. If he's a slot receiver, a fourth receiver, major problem. We got to have a discussion. And here's where I also would have a problem. If Kesey's the number one guy, if Forbes the number one guy, if Serwanga is the number one guy, and then the number two guy on those teams is a tight end, the number two guy on that team is a running back, I got a problem. Now you're using some systems here. But if the number two guy is a receiver, I've got no problem with that. Like, clearly this guy is throwing to receivers. He just happens to have a stud receiver. Like, we have to allow the area for a guy who is really good at the sticks, who builds a really good team, and who builds a really good offense, like the West Coast 49ers back in the 80s, right? Like, you know, the greatest show on turf with the LA Rams. Like, those teams set records and changed the way football happened because they found the players in the system that worked. We have to allow for that here, right? Now, if Kesey is putting up 200 receptions and 3,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, yeah, now, okay, something's up. Like, we got to figure this out. But he's not. He is setting some records. He's having an outstanding season. So are these other guys that are in the league. But I, again, like you, have zero problem with it. I know Chaotic would grossly disagree with us that he does have a problem with it. But you're also talking about a defensive-minded dude, right? Like, that dude plays outstanding defense and struggles with the passing game. So, like, his mindset is already going to be making people spread around because that's what he wants on defense. So, that was kind of how I wanted to put a bow on this show. We've had a great show. I can't believe that you and I have been going at this for an hour and 16 minutes. So, let's wrap this thing up. Let's hog tie it. Put a bow on it. Give me your closing thoughts for the show.
Man, I think it's really I know we're in the middle of the season. I think the excitement's still there. We have had a few, I say, slow advances, guys. Just I know it don't take very much to post. Just post your times. You're scheduling your games. Post your times. Me usually, unless and I know that there's no exceptions, unless I'm playing somebody like Nate or somebody that I've known,
sure.
And we our schedules wrapped around each other. We know we might not post right off that. I usually post as soon as we advance. I go ahead and post. Get my stuff out there, get them posted. Let's get a time working. We've had a couple advances to where the last 36 hours, we're still got games that ain't been posted yet. I'd hate for Maniac to have to start ruling with Iron Fist.
It's not Maniac that we have to worry about here. It's Bill that we got to worry about.
You're right. I hate to have Maniac, which he don't even have to stick Bill on you. Bill's gonna get you anyway. But yeah, I mean, we know we're gonna have. I know things come up, and I know guys get busy. It just don't take very long. I mean, I get on my phone and in 5 minutes, I can have my post written up. But I think as a whole, I think it's been a real good season. I think we've seen a lot of disparity, a lot of teams that are winning that hadn't been winning, and there's still a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
And I really like seeing that. And as far as I can tell, I haven't seen any big FPR issues that at least have been brought to my attention. I think that's a good thing for the league. And like I said, just as a whole, I think you guys keep these questions going. I really enjoyed the question segment.
Yeah, me too.
I think it bring, especially if you had, Maniac here and Dawson here, you'd really get to see four sides of a question. And I'm just excited to keep going. Like I said, I'm really excited about the NFC. I wish Nate was going to be around so we could really have this four-way team going in the NFC South. I really enjoy when even if I was the odd man out, I still love seeing the race for a division like that.
Yeah, me too.
And it's just fun, and I'm just looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think it's been a great show. Thank you so much for taking time on your Thursday to do this before I leave. To talk about the advances real quick, if guys get their stuff posted in the first 24 hours as per the rules, then I have no problem if we need to take all 3 days. I think where the problem is if you schedule on the last day, right? Or if it's 48 hours out and you still haven't let anybody know nothing, you haven't posted anything. This is not difficult, guys. It's not confusing. It's not complicated. You got 24 hours. We advanced late last night, so you got all day today to go into the forums and make a post. If you guys agree, then one of you post the agreed to time. If you didn't agree and you're still figuring out, then post and update us. Post your times that you're available, right? That's what we look at. If one of you posts and the other doesn't, but you've been talking in PM, that doesn't matter to us. PMs don't work. That is not what counts here. Your forum post. I need to see a post from both of you or from one of you saying that you guys have talked and you're working it out and blah, 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 and here's what we're thinking, right? If you do that in the first 24 hours, no problem, take all 3 days. But here soon, we're getting on the summer. We got to hold guys accountable. if you're not posting in 24 hours, we're CPU gaming it. We're moving on. We're simming. We're doing what we got to do for the rest of us that are here doing our part to continue to play. Again, though, it's been a great show. Lots of fun things. Look, even if you're not a WWE guy, I'm asking all of you to take time. Our pay-per-view will drop next week. Please check it out. We've put in so much work, and I think it's going to be one of the most... I think you will be entertained by that hour-and-a-half video that you watch, even if you just do it when you don't have time. I think you'd be entertained if you go back and watch any of them, but this one's going to be really, really good. I'm excited about it. The GFW is exploding and growing. The NASCAR League is taking over. These guys talked me into getting this stupid game, so another thing just to get beat by Dwayne by. And the Golf League is still going, as frustrated as I am with that stupid game. Like, we're still going super strong in golf. Fortnite is really blowing up. The Madden leagues are all going super strong. The only thing I wish we were still doing was FIFA. I still have FIFA, so anybody who gets the itch to play, I still want to play some of that. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Grown Folks OC on Twitter, Grown Folks Online Community on YouTube, Grown Folks OC on Twitch. Give us some likes and some subscribes, and then go to our website, grownfolksoc.com. Check out the latest blogs. Been kind of lacking on the blogs lately. I want to see some more blogs up there. Participate in our incentive program. We added Twitter to that, so if you make a team Twitter page, you get a quarter of a point for every tweet that you make. Make sure that you tag us, though, so that we can like it and retweet it. We have a pretty nice following. I think almost 400 people follow us on Twitter. And let's push your stuff out. Push that content out. Let us hear about your teams and let us hear about your season, how things are going. So, Dwayne, thank you again for being with me, buddy. We went old school these last 2 weeks. We will be back here again next Thursday or Friday. We may even wait till the Saturday so that we can get everybody together. I'll find out from the guys what they can do when I get back from Chicago. We'll get back together. We'll update you where we are in the OMFL, and we'll probably have a better idea of the playoffs by the time we get there. So, for Dwayne and all of the leadership here in the OMFL, thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Later, guys.